Good Tuesday, everybody. It's Jim. It's Matt. Yesterday, Matthew, we had a lot of stuff going on at the trade deadline. Before we get into the winners, you got some losers.
Yeah, the two that jumped off the page to me as teams that lost yesterday once the clock hit 6 p.m. One of them resides in New York, and the other one resides right here where I live in Atlanta, and that's the Yankees and the Braves. I think it specifically more speaking to the Atlanta front. Alex Anthopoulos had nothing short of a catastrophic failure at yesterday's deadline with the resources that he had available and the farm system that he had available to him, and the product that they have put on the field to this point. It's not only does it send a bad message, his actions yesterday to that clubhouse, it really puts them in a really, really bad position going into playoff baseball, because now you're in a position where, Bryce Elder, save his greatness the first 2 months of the season, has fallen back into a little bit more of that average to mediocrity that he's been accustomed to for the, majority of his career. And he's going to be your projected game 2 starter, obviously with the assumption that Atlanta, makes the playoffs and is hosting a series.
It's interesting. Late yesterday, I don't know if you saw this, but in about 4 of the major betting services, they moved the Red Sox chances to make the World Series ahead of the Braves.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to
who would have thought that like 5 months ago, right? 4 months ago.
Yeah, and it a lot of it has to do with, look, this is a game. The way baseball is played, like, offense is a premium, and I get that. And big bats, home runs are a premium, right? Pitching wins you series when you get to the playoff. Pitching wins you World Series when you get there. And the simple answer is that the Braves don't have enough of it. They don't have a deep enough bullpen to shorten games for starters. They can't afford to have them go more than about 5 innings. They have a solid back end of the bullpen, but they don't have enough quality bullpen depth. They don't have enough quality starters in that rotation right now. And they have to hope that some guys are going to get healthy and are going to return to the form that they are. I know they made a late push for Jacob deGrom, and that was a trade that he blocked with his no trade clause.
Right.
And that's okay, but it's unacceptable for that to be the only plan. I think it's a similar feeling that I had last year sitting in this position as a Red Sox fan, when you looked at it and said, okay, Joe Ryan's plan A, right? And when that deal falls through at the last minute, you have to make a last second pivot and go get Dustin May. Right. And it just wasn't, that wasn't enough. There's got to be, plans in place as backup options. And when I tell you that this is a season that now hinges, I think this is a season that Alex Anthopoulos' job security hinges on, in a sense where I don't know what it's like in the front offices, there in Atlanta. I don't know what any of the ownership or anybody residing, over Atlanta thinks about the way things unfolded yesterday. But this was an opportunity that was flat out missed, especially when you look at the San Diego Padres, and they're a game out of the wild card, and they've surged a little bit. And AJ Preller, he goes out and he gets Robbie Ray, who's sporting a 3.08 ERA, and he gets Casey Mize, who has an ERA under 3 this year, and that was a signal, and what signals it can send to your clubhouse when you are buying versus, selling, or even standing pat. And that's what it feels like the Braves did. They made some borderline acquisitions, obviously, but it's just not enough. It was never going to be enough. They had the ability to go out and make a splash in this deadline. They presented an offer for Tarek Skubal that was pretty much balked at by the Tigers. Based on the reporting that I've seen, the Tigers seem to have a lot more interest in what the Dodgers had to offer them in terms of prospects. Obviously, they made that push for deGrom. But outside of that, there was plenty of quality starters available on this market. It was a buyer's market in terms of starting pitching. And the fact that they came away with Bailey Falter And good Lord, I can't even remember the guy they acquired yesterday off the top of my head, but his ERA was over 5 as well. It's a failure.
I was curious as to why. I mean, I looked at what, you know, Gosman went for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while I can't say specifically I know the Braves farm system, I think they could have got Gosman.
They had the farm system and the ability to go get any one of these guys, and
Mm-hmm.
I think the resounding thought process, or what is interesting to me, is that these guys, they didn't cost a lot. Like Freddie
Mm-hmm.
Peralta didn't cost a lot. Kevin Gausman
No.
didn't cost a lot. Neither of the guys that San Diego acquired. I know Casey Mize had a bit of a higher price tag on
Right.
him comparatively, but again, these guys don't cost a lot. And when you're in a championship window, which a team 22 games over 500
Mm-hmm.
is in, like this is not a team that is like, you look up at the Dodgers and say, well, there's a, a Grand Canyon sized gap between the
Mm-hmm.
two. This is a team where you look at it and you go, they can score runs with the Dodgers. Like they have the ability to beat this team in a series, but what they need is pitching. And unless Chris Sale is just going to go out there and start every game for them,
Mm-hmm.
or I get the two mixed up in my head. It's either Schwellenbach or Smith Shawver. I think it's AJ Smith Shawver that's coming
Mm-hmm.
back. And unless he's coming back and he's going to be a guy that's sporting an ERA under 3 or
Mm-hmm.
around 3, then they are in trouble in this year, in the foreseeable future, because again, barring a catastrophic collapse, this is a team that's going to make the playoffs. You would expect them to host a series. You'd expect them to win the division, right? But it's not a team that's set up to go win in the playoffs. It's not a team that has, if I remember correctly, has won a playoff series since 2021.
Right.
And Alex Anthopoulos bought himself a lot of time with that deadline he had in 2021, and it turned out to be fantastic for them. But it seems like he's been trying to capture that same magic deadline after deadline in Atlanta.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll, I'll let you get to your second loser, but I gotta say, I don't think the Phillies are out of winning this division.
No, they aren't. And the Phillies are, look, there's a lot that can be said about the Phillies moves. I have questions, but again, it's I go back to, and this is the thing that I always think is the most interesting part of the trade deadline, is there is a psychological aspect to things,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at this, and what a clubhouse, the way a clubhouse can almost feel reinvigorated by a
Mm-hmm.
belief in them from the front office. There are teams that I think are going to be better because they bought. I think there are teams that maybe bought when
Mm-hmm.
they shouldn't have. I think Minnesota is an interesting case, and we'll get to them eventually.
Yeah.
But again, what does it tell Chris Sale, who has given you everything he's got and has
Right.
pitched phenomenally this season, that hey, there's no help coming. Like you may go win us a game, but guess what? Behind you, there's not much coming. I
Right.
know I
Don't
mentioned
don't
Dustin.
look for reinforcements. Yeah.
Yeah, I know I mentioned Dustin May in terms of the Boston Red Sox last
Mm-hmm.
year, and when he got to Boston, he just flat out wasn't good. But he's been good this year, and he's a
Mm-hmm.
guy that went for cheap going to Milwaukee and the
Right.
Brewers, and obviously that was their pivot off of Tarek Skubal. Um, but again, you look at the starting pitching that was moved, and there's just no excuse to go get it. It was the glaring need on this team. Like it wasn't like it was some big secret. The Atlanta Braves needed starting pitching, and
Right.
he talks about not wanting to part with prospects, and I get they like their prospects a lot, and they've done a really good job of developing their prospects and what
Mm-hmm.
these guys have become, because you look at a lot of their major league rotation and their major league lineup, and a lot of it has been homegrown,
Sure.
and that you have to commend them for. But it's not like we're talking about guys that are in the top 10. Some of these guys, a lot of these guys that they're talking about and holding on to, and Alex Anthopoulos talked about the price tag being too high, weren't even top 100 guys. Like that.
No.
That's what I don't understand about this. And so I'll be honest, I'm almost upset for Braves fans, because this is a fan base that obviously shows up on a night in night out basis for them.
Mhm.
This is a team that has played well enough and has the offense to go win a World Series. And there was a what I would interpret as an almost lack of belief from Alex Anthopoulos in that front office.
Yeah, I have to agree because the look, everybody says it every year. You get the Dodgers, you get the Braves, the Phillies, all these. You look at them and you go, well, there they are, right? But there's a window,
Hmm.
and this year's situation for the Braves, they've played good baseball. You're right. They pitching, that was a problem because everybody got hurt. But you know, you got to do something to energize the clubhouse and to energize the team to let them know, hey, look, because they're looking up and seeing Philly grab a Reyes and get these guys. And last night I tuned into the Phillies pregame show, and they had Bryce, and Bryce was on the show, and Bryce was holding two gloves and saying, I don't know where I'm going to play tonight, but I don't care. I'm excited. We got a Reyes on our team. He's a game changer, and and the excitement with I mean, they're like little kids. They're like, okay, now let's go. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that, and it had to be the same in Boston with Adley Rushman, um, from that standpoint. But I do think that sometimes being um, holding on to prospects is a mistake because sometimes those prospects don't work out.
Yeah, I think I'm going to shift a little bit in terms of, also just one more note on Chris Sale.
Yeah,
This guy has won them a Cy Young. He's been fantastic.
yeah,
He's one of my favorite pitchers in baseball.
mhm.
And next year he's not going to be a year younger. This
No,
is what you've gotten out of him has been fantastic based on where he was when his time ended in Boston. Like
right,
you have to remember where he was and what people thought he was going to be. This was not the forecast for Chris Sale when he got traded to Atlanta. And it's been great to see him have this career year. And I think if nothing else, because look, a lot of the guys on that team are younger, but Chris Sale's not. And there's no guarantee that he's going to be able to have another season like the one he is having.
right.
Hope he does, but that's just another year wasted, and it frustrates me there. But you talked about prospects, and there's no guarantees they pan out. Listen, Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, and Christian Campbell were heralded as the big three. These
Hmm.
guys are going to be the saviors of baseball in Boston. Right
Hmm.
now, Christian Campbell's back in AAA. He's still trying to figure things out. He's hitting in the
Hmm.
low 200s. Yesterday, Marcelo Meyer was dealt for a relief pitcher to San Francisco, and
Hmm.
Roman Anthony's been hurt for a lot of the year. And Roman Anthony's a guy that you believe is going to come back and continue to be the guy that he was the second half of that year. But again, when you look at that hit rate, you're at 33% on three supposedly can't miss guys, right?
Hmm.
That's where you're sitting, and that's the same reason that I can sit back and rest easy. Looking at the deadline yesterday and going, there was a lot of people that said, that's a high asking price for Adley Rushman, and maybe it is, maybe it's an in division tax, maybe those guys go out there and be fantastic big leaders in 2 to 3 years, and for them as people, I hope they are. But in terms of what they can do for a club now,
Right.
is these guys were not going to contribute to winning baseball in Boston in 2026. The odds are they weren't going to do that in 2027 either. These were guys that were drafted within the last year or two. It's a guy in Carlos Narvaez that, for as much as I loved him last year, and he was a really good piece for us last year, he's hitting around 160 this year, and that's
Hmm.
not a winning baseball player in 2026. And so these are pieces that you can part with, because when Adley Rushman comes back, Adley Rushman is going to make your baseball team better. And
Hmm.
when Marcelo Meyer departs for that left-handed relief pitcher, he's a guy that's carrying an ERA under 3. I think he's got a 2.6 something.
Hmm.
coming in. He's 6'5". He fits the profile. And this is a guy that makes your bullpen better for this year. And as much as I love Marcelo Meyer, he was not a version of himself that was going to contribute to this baseball team in an effective manner in 2026. So it's stuff that you see these names go out and you like them and their prospects and you believe that maybe they were a future of the baseball team, but at some point the future has to be now. And I'm very happy with Craig Breslow and his willingness to pull a trigger on deals like that.
By the way, I'm going through baseball, excuse me, MLB Network's grading, and they gave the Braves a C.
That's generous. I would give them an F.
Yeah. Baltimore got a D. They got a massive haul for all, Audrey Rushman, but they added some organizational depth, blah blah blah. Just between you, me, and the gatepost. Not that anything matters in that regard, but the Orioles fans were about to run the entire front office and ownership into Chesapeake Bay yesterday when they traded Rushman.
Which I get. He was a fan favorite in Baltimore, and it's tough to let him go. Not only let him go, but let him go to a division rival.
That was the key. That was the. I don't. Your point. Rushman is a hell of a good kid. He's a good ball player. He stands out. He signs autographs. He takes pictures. I mean, there's nothing he doesn't do. He's one of those guys you want, and Boston's going to love him because he's just a fan guy. I mean, he understands how much fans mean to the game, and I think that to your point, this kid is not only can he hit, try stealing on him. He's got an arm. So they got a good guy. There's no question about that. And he's going to be a good guy for a long time.
Yeah. And like I said, there's reason to be upset for all those reasons that you just mentioned. But at the same time, that haul they got back was fantastic. It was a win for Baltimore in that front office because they love Adley Rushman, but they tried to get an extension done with Adley Rushman, and they weren't able to get it done with him. That's something that's reality. There's a reality that next season, you don't know how much of that season you have. So you have the rest of this season and whatever there is of 2027 baseball next year, right? And that's what you have of Adley Rushman because there's no guarantees he's coming back there. And what you got in return was Boston's number 2 prospect, number 3 prospect, and number 6 prospect in their system, along with a guy that has played Major League Baseball in Carlos Narvaez and a player to be named later.
Right.
So they got as good of a haul they could have gotten. You send him out of division, you're not getting that same haul. But the package they got, whether or not they pan out, you almost have to be happy because not only are you staring down the barrel of, we have the rest of this season and what is going to be of next season, we don't know. Right. But you have a guy behind him in Sammy Basayo that may not have the same defensive profile, but he's one hell of a bat that is going to slot in behind the plate in place of Adley Rushman.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think the biggest thing, and again, I was about to say that had they traded him out of the division, I don't think the pushback would have been. But you got to get it. It's when you're a Baltimore, right? You're always looking up the Red Sox and the Yankees, and so had they traded him to the Yankees or they traded him to Boston, it didn't matter. How could you do it? And so I'm not saying that in 2 years, if those 1 or 2 of those guys they got from Boston, is on the big club and doing really well, I don't think anybody even remembers it. But it's how people look at how fans react. I mean, from that standpoint. So that's all it is. I mean, as I said, you're 100% right. Meaning Boston paid a dear price because it was in division. And I look, you and I know that if one of these guys shows up, then that's a big win.
Yeah.
And there's no reason to believe that two of them, probably all three of them, can, in some way, shape, or form, come through. But it's hard on a fan base, as we talked about being hard on a club, hard on a fan base to see a fan favorite go and a fan favorite go to a rival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it absolutely is. But that's why the tax is there, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why in Baltimore you can't rest easy losing a guy like Hadley Rushman in terms
Mm-hmm.
of what he meant to the fan base. Like that's just not going to be something that's happened. But the package that you're able to get is the thing that softens the blow. And in terms of setting your club up for future success,
Right.
that's you want to go out and you want to get the best package
Sure.
available. And the best package available is going to be in division.
All right, Cubs get an A yesterday.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what,
that's
I was surprised that the Cubs even decided that, let's go for it.
yeah. I mean, I I do and don't. They needed pitching like
They
that
got
has
it.
been their Achilles heel is they did not have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
rotation depth and their bullpen has been lackluster
Mm-hmm.
at best. And they went out and I think they killed it.
Yeah.
They got two really good starters, Kevin Gossman, and you talked about Adley Rushman and what he meant
Mm-hmm.
to the city of Baltimore, what he meant to the Orioles and their fans.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the same can be said for Kevin Gossman and what
Mm-hmm.
he meant for Toronto. And I think that's part of the reason that yes, you're trading for a guy that has he is a good starting pitcher and is going to give you quality outings every time he toes the rubber. But he's also a guy that is going to be really good for your clubhouse, and that helps a lot. You go get a guy in Braxton Garrett in Miami that has almost been trapped a little bit, and he's a guy that has a chance to be a really good starter for you. The reliever from Los Angeles, good Lord, I can't remember his name, but it's a tongue twister on anyways. He's really good for them, and he's going to be a legitimate piece. Pitching was their deficit, and the same way I talked about the Braves and their clear and obvious need for pitching, and
Mm-hmm.
that being what could be a stepping stone, like that could be your roadblock to getting back to the World Series there was no hesitation in Chicago. There was no hesitation to get those deals done. They went out and got them done. They're a better baseball team today because of it. I think they're going to be a better clubhouse for the rest of the year because of it,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a strengthened World Series chance because of it as well.
Guardians get a B plus according to Major League Baseball.
I I think that's an undersell on what Cleveland did.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big fan of what they did yesterday. They went out and they got Foster Griffin, who's 12-3 with a 3 flat ERA. It's a
Right.
fantastic starting pitcher. They went out and they got a bat in Joe Adell, and then they
Mm-hmm.
added Nathaniel Lowe as well. I
Right.
really liked the additions and what they did. I liked when they bought in a division that they still believe they can win. Not only just in terms of making the wild card and being right there on the cut line of the wild card,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that they believe in that front office and in that clubhouse that this is a division that they can go still win with some of the relative inexperience in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a bit of a go for it deadline for them.
Yep. All right. Let's move down to. By the way, Detroit got an F. Do, 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 do. Dodgers get an A plus. Well, that's not saying much.
Yeah,
They
I
give it,
mean they went out and got the one guy that they had to go get like
that's the
that.
one guy they wanted.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was all it took. So,
yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, aside from Tarek Skubal being in the rotation, the fact
Mhm.
that Tarek Skubal is not pitching against them probably means just as much in terms of not pitching against them in a playoff race. Because I think we talked about it yesterday, how
Mhm.
difficult it would be if you had to go against rotation, whether the
Right.
1-2 is Mizorowski and Skubal, and
Yeah.
that's not an obstacle.
No, that would have been like going way back in the day. That would have been like going against Koufax and Drysdale.
Mhm.
Um, Milwaukee Brewers get a B plus. Much of your Dustin May argument is the key to that.
Yeah, it's a B plus in terms of what they were able to do. It still
Mhm.
feels like a bit of a failure not going and getting Scooble because it seems like this could have been the year. You had the prospect capital to go and get it done. And that's the reason I think for some people on the outside looking in, it may be the feeling for some fans in Milwaukee that this is a little bit of a failure. But nonetheless, those are two really solid additions that they got, and
Mhm.
Jojo Romero in the bullpen and Dustin May as your starting rotation.
The Yankees get a D. They had 3 needs. They got one of them.
Well, I mean, a need is a stretch. Like if I'm going down the list and I'm looking at positional
Mhm.
needs in New York, first base is like the bottom of the priority list, and that's
Right.
what they got. They got a guy that can exclusively play first base and DH. Like this guy's defense in Luis Garcia is not a guy that's going to, like, you can't move him around and try him in new places. He's not been a good defender during his career
Mhm.
up until this point. Last night he had a really good home run that put him ahead for
An
maybe an
hour.
out.
Yeah.
Like it may have been one out, but you see the glaring holes, and they're doing a thing that was done in Boston last year, and it's the easiest comparison because it's the team that I follow the closest. But last year in Boston, it almost felt like the prospects were called up to try and save the season after you really didn't have a good deadline, right?
Mhm.
And that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody. The Yankees had a horrible deadline. They had positions of need. They had clear and obvious positions of need. The
Mhm.
main one being catcher, and they didn't attack it. Like they did what the Braves did. They did what I'm glad Boston didn't do in
Mhm.
holding on to prospects. Elmer Rodriguez Cruz or Cruz Rodriguez. I can't remember which way it flips for him.
Cruz
ERC.
Rodriguez.
So Rodriguez Cruz. His name's
Yeah.
ERC. So it's Rodriguez Cruz. Was a guy that was discussed, and they were not willing to put that in a deal for Adley Rushman, and somebody that they they felt a deal was close on Sunday night for Adley Rushman and what he could have fixed in terms of their catching position, because their catching position has been bad. Austin Wells has been better as of the last week or two, but if you're
Mhm.
banking on a guy that has hit 160 this year, if you're banking on a 2-week sample size to last you the rest of the season, then you know what? Brian Cashman must play the lottery every week as well, because that's not something that I'm willing to bank on. And in terms of first base, you have Ben Rice and you have Paul Goldschmidt, and they can flip that and they can platoon that, and now you infuse a third option into that, and you have first base and DH. Those are the two positions. And so, in terms of positional, availability,
Right.
it handcuffs you. Especially they talk about like Brian Cashman, I believe, talked about Cody Bellinger coming back and
Mhm.
Judge potentially coming back and Stanton potentially coming back. Giancarlo Stanton cannot play the outfield,
No.
depending on what the severity of Aaron Judge's injury. How limited is he going to be in the field? And
Right.
then you go and add a guy that is going to log jam that up even more. A lot of pressure and criticism has fallen on Aaron Boone, and I think a good bit of it has been fair at times.
Mhm.
But what Brian Cashman did was an absolute handcuff situation for Boone if those guys come back, and trying to fill out that lineup card in what feels like a really tough position to get all of your best bats in the lineup.
Well, you basically have 3 designated hitters,
Mm-hmm.
which doesn't help you.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, you're not allowed to have it. Plus, they don't. Plus, then they have to catch the ball in the outfield.
Yeah.
The other A went to the San Diego Padres. We talked about what AJ Perel was able to do um, in San Diego, which is what he seems to be able to do every season, and that's find the players that they need at the time they need them. And I think his understanding is, no, we're not catching the Dodgers, but you know what? We're going to be in the wild card playoffs, and once we're in, we're in.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, they lost a game last night to the D-backs. That's the team they're
Mhm.
trailing currently
Right.
in the wild card race. But to the same point, the Diamondbacks didn't buy yesterday. Like they didn't go out and make their club better. I
No.
think if you're AJ Preller and you in the season and you're on the outside looking in, and then you still feel okay because you like what you had in terms of your lineup. You believed in your lineup enough to go
Right.
out and add this starting pitching. And if that starting pitching isn't enough to get you across the finish line, then it kind of is what it is. But I talked about Atlanta and their ability to shorten ball games, and the need for starting pitchers that can go out there and start playoff games. Casey Mize can start you a playoff game. Robbie Ray can start you a playoff game. You already had the bullpen in place to be able to go and shorten a game in what you have in that back end. Talking about Mason Miller when he comes into a game, and I know he had a blown save recently, but when he comes into a game, the game is effectively over. And they have Morejon in the back of that pen, who's fantastic as well. They have a bullpen that can shorten games. They now have a starting pitching staff that is good to go for any number of games in a series, right?
Yeah.
And so get there. It would be the message in San Diego. Like if they get there, then they feel really good about their position going into the playoffs.
All right. The Tampa Bay Rays get a B. They added Liam Hicks, the catcher they wanted from Miami, Taylor Wells, and Freddie Peralta.
Yeah, you like what they did. They addressed their positions of need, and some they addressed very well. I like the Freddie Peralta ad a lot in terms of I talked about how I think that if you're going to believe in an organization to flip a starting pitcher struggles around, it's Tampa Bay or it's Milwaukee.
Right.
And so there's probably a strong belief that Freddie Peralta can return to a version of him that was competing for Cy Young awards. The only thing, and this is looking 1,000 yards into the future,
Right.
that I would say about Liam Hicks. He obviously addresses their need for help catching, right?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't help you in a potential playoff series in Boston, and that's the big sticking point. Is my thought process, because he's a left-handed hitting catcher that does not hit lefties well. And when you look at the potential threats and the way things have gone, and nothing lasts forever, I'm aware of that. But if you are to believe that the team for the last month and a half that has been in Boston is the team that is going to continue to be playing baseball wearing those Red Sox uniforms, then they're a team that you would expect to see it come playoff time. And they're a team that is heavy on their left-handed starters. Aiden Tolley, Jake Bennett, Garrett Crochet, if he were to come back, Ranger Suarez is there. The only non-lefty is Sonny Gray in that rotation, and potentially Brian Bayo if for some reason he were to slot back in a starting role. And that's something that would give you, I would say, mild pause for concern, just because you address the need, but would that need help you come playoff time in those series? And you can't bank on that. I get that. And you still have to absolutely give them credit for the need, because he was, I think, in terms of catchers available, probably the second best catcher that was available on the market.
It's funny because they asked, Nylander about did he make a phone call to the Red Sox? I'm sorry, to the Orioles on Adley Rushman, and he said, "Well, he said, I made the phone call." He said, "I heard what they were asking," and he goes, and I just said to myself, you know what? He's a good catcher. It'd be lovely to have him, but you know what? If we can get Liam, we'll take Liam. He said, and then he goes, "Look, that doesn't mean think that he's a better catcher than Adley. It just means that I'm not willing to give up what they wanted." So,
Yeah.
Look, whether it works or doesn't work, it helps them now. If they get to as you say, 1,000 miles down the road, you address that problem when you get to that problem.
Yeah, I think the only, and it almost seems like this time of year, like when this time of year rolls around, everyone appears to, a lot of GMs, specifically the GMs in Tampa and Milwaukee and Atlanta, and even in New York, surprisingly enough, seem to almost have this feel of they're holding on to things in fear of the deal that is, we traded
Mhm,
Fernando Tatis for James Shields, or we
mhm,
traded, Jordan Alvarez for whoever the hell the Dodgers got back.
right.
And I think if you live in fear of those deals, then you're never going to make your major league club all that much better.
Well, you know, Eric Nylander to me is one of the better GMs. So I'm not gonna sit back and
Oh
argue
yeah,
with.
you definitely, of the people that you can question at this
Yeah,
deadline, he's not the one that you question in terms of what they've built in Tampa with the payroll that they have.
yeah, and I think that the other thing is with that, is they got to get through this year. They're working. The the ownership group's a whole different vibe. They um, they want to get that stadium deal finished and across the finish line. And once that comes, and I think that you're going to see, a better deal. But still, you know, I think that if you talk to, I mean, Nylander said yesterday that the um, one, they were asking him about, he goes, look, we haven't won the division yet. So he said, well, let's don't go down that road. And he said, I'm looking because you got to give the Red Sox and look over your shoulder for them. And he goes, I'm honestly more concerned about the Red Sox than I am with the Yankees at the moment.
And that's understandable because now the Yankees deadline almost exclusively hinges on the health of their guys that are on the IL right now.
Right.
In the belief that when they come back, they are the exact same players that they lost when they lost
Mm-hmm.
them. And that's, again, that's the reason that you feel like this deadline's a failure. The only way that you look back on this deadline, if you're New York and you say like, okay, I live with that, it's fine, I understand why we did it, is if Aaron Judge doesn't play baseball in 2026 again.
Mm-hmm.
That's and I've talked about it, and I still believe it's true that you hand out the award to a different player seemingly every year, but in terms of who's the most valuable player, in terms of what they mean to their team, and how the team goes with and without them, the most valuable player in Major League Baseball is Aaron Judge.
Mm-hmm.
Because listen, you take Shohei Ohtani off the Dodgers still have a murderer's row of bats behind them,
Well,
and they're still a similar franchise and baseball team without Shohei Ohtani. Without Aaron Judge in the lineup, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but there was when I think it may have been the year before in 24. But they were waiting on Aaron Judge's injury report to come back to decide whether or not they were going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline. Like that is something that was very legit and very real because without him, they didn't believe they had a team worth buying. And with
right.
him, they had a team they believed was worth buying into. Like that's what he means to the Yankees in terms of, making that offense go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's if Aaron Judge doesn't play baseball, then you can sit back and go, okay, this makes sense. If he does play baseball, it feels like another year where you go, what did you do to help get this guy a World Series? Because they got close in 24, but aside from that, it feels like they've been miles from the World Series with him at the helm.
The only other A was the Washington Nationals. Garcia, Foster, and Mead were all, sent out. Basically, they're found money. To be honest, Foster was a low cost free agent signing coming from Japan. Um, he was acquired in a minor trade at the end of spring training. Garcia, as we mentioned, had a breakout year for him, but he's still not the defensive guy they would want. And
Mhm.
they were able to keep C.J. Abrams, which part of the issue for the Nationals is they're getting ready to sell the ball club.
Mhm.
And when you sell the ball club, the last thing you want to do is trade away a C.J. Abrams or a James Woods, because those are the guys. If you're going to sell the team, you don't want the new owners to have to look up and go, "What the hell? What did I just buy?" Um, so we'll see how that works out. But that's pretty much it. I mean, we are right there, and and it's going to be a fun August and September.
Yeah, I think the best way that I saw the Nationals deadline surmised was, and this was something that somebody put out on Twitter,
Mhm.
was if you'd asked Nationals fans, or if you told Nationals fans in the preseason, we got rid of Foster Griffin and Curtis Mead, the
Mhm.
response would probably be, "Who the hell are Foster Griffin and Curtis Mead?"
Right.
So it's those are losses that you can absolutely deal with if you're Nationals fans. I don't think that this year, I not that I don't think, I know this wasn't going to be their year. They don't have the pitching for it to be any kind of a legitimate year. But they kept their key long term pieces intact in terms of what this offense can be moving forward as well. So they set themselves up better for future seasons.
Yep. And that's kind of what you want to do at deadline if you're not going to be running for the big time, right?
Hmm.
For the prize. All right, we're college football guys. Um, the Save College Football Act is slowly making its way through the process in the Senate. Last Friday, you know, the movement of the SEC and the Big Ten to adopt it, to say, yeah, we're in, um, helps it. And now we're at a position where uh, two things that stand out about the movement of teams from one conference to the other is that number one, each of the power fours would be capped at 19. I think they'll push that up to probably 20. They may push it a little further, but I don't think it's too much. Um, Honestly, I think the SEC and the Big Ten decided, you know what, we'll be in on it. Oh, by the way, there's if you want to make that change, you have to be a free agent for 12 years. I'm sorry, 5 years. 5 years. You have to be an independent for 5 years. So to make that adaptation, I I'll tell you, it's been I've told people this and they literally don't. I don't know why they don't believe me. That the Big Ten and the SEC are going to get paid by the networks regardless of who they have in there. I mean, those are the two most valuable conferences in college um, football, and certainly you can make the argument in college sports overall. But to basically sit there and go, they don't need to add anybody in my mind, and they're still going to get the money.
Hmm.
And so, the FSUs of the world, the Miami's of the world, the North Carolinas of the world, all of these people who, Utah, Arizona State, all these other people who want to be in the club. I get that. I mean, everybody wants to be in the club. But when you're in the club, um, I'm not sure that you need to do, make those additions. That's number one. And number two, I think the other part to that is they want that limited free, the limited situation where you don't have the no, why am I blanking on it? So baseball limited um uh why am I free? It's the baseball has the it's the exemption. Oh, that's what it was. Okay, the exemption. Um, you can get that limited exemption, and that would let them work, kind of independently to
Hmm.
get what they want. And I think that's what they're like basically saying, okay, fine, we'll agree to all these other points. We don't care. But the the exemption, I think, is the thing that they wanted, and that's what they got in the deal.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Big Ten and the SEC. You're absolutely correct. They are your big money ball players. They're going to continue to be your big money ball players. It doesn't. There's nothing that the ACC or the Big 12 could do because they're your other two,
Hmm.
P4 schools. Like There's just not a way at this point in time. There was never going to be a way that you have the ability to, I guess, build the brands of these schools in your conference to be able to get to a competitive nature in terms of the brands that you have in the SEC and the Big Ten. It's just not something that you can do. Um, it's the these brands that they have. It's not something that you can replicate in any form or fashion. I think that the ACC has a stronger claim to brand value because there are
Right.
schools that I believe have a stronger brand value, whether that be in football or outside of football. Because look, sometimes outside of football matters just as much as football does in a
Mhm.
way. There's no Miami in the Big 12. There's no Florida State in the Big 12, and you can lament what Florida State's been in terms of football, over the past a decade at this point. But the matter of the fact is Florida State still, when they're good, there's it doesn't matter. They are a better brand. Even Florida State, when they're a 9-win team, they get more clicks than Texas
Mhm.
Tech does when Texas Tech makes the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
That's true. Clemson and what Dabo Swinney has built because of when they built it are a bigger brand than anything the Big 12 can put forth. North Carolina is a bigger brand than anything the Big 12 can put forth. So all of those things are true about these conferences, and it ultimately leaves you with a tier list of conferences, and I feel like we spend a lot of our time on this show, kind of shitting on the Big 12, but the fact of the matter is that in terms of their brand value, they're on the bottom looking up, trying to chase down these guys, and they want to, like, you can tell based off the interactions. I've seen a lot of the interactions, on Twitter between you and some people that really enjoy Big 12 football, that they want to be the ACC so badly they can't see straight. They want the ACC to fall apart so badly they can't see straight. That way they can go grab those brands that they can't create. But the matter of the fact is that's not coming. So, you're stuck in a system now where you have these tiers of conferences, and there's not going to be much changing going on in terms of the way you view these tiers. Even if you had a school here or there.
I think we talked about this the other day. Um, Miami with Mario Cristobal, who they just gave an extension to. Wise choice on their part.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he was going anywhere. But anyway, just win the damn league, get in the playoffs, and win playoff games.
Yep.
You know, uh, that's all. Cristobal kept his head down and said, "Okay, here's where we're going to do it." It started to work. He started to surround himself with better coaches, and he became a better coach. And it's just like, shut up and win. And that's my only point. The only brand that is not that people understand when you ask them about it in the Big 12, and this is not to upset the Big 12 fans, is BYU. People know who BYU is. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. You can't tell me, oh yeah, everybody's knows where, everybody knows Baylor. The only reason they know Texas Tech is because of Cody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's um and actually, to be honest, that and the TV show Landman, which is not that far away, and they use a lot of Texas Tech merch on the show. So does that make you a bad conference? No, it doesn't make you a bad conference. Just go out there, do what Kenny Dellinger did, in Arizona State. Just get in the playoffs and make a little noise. But shut up and just about what you're going to do. I mean, they were literally, if the Pac-12 had stayed together, they were literally on their, they would be in a position where they might not have made that power, you know, situation. I mean,
Yeah.
Bowlesby was 90 days away from watching that whole thing blow up, just like the Pac blew up. He was fortunate because the Pac was run by a couple of stupid people who couldn't figure the thing out, and at the end of the day, that was the combination of hubris and and lunacy uh, cost them a conference that was around for 100 years.
Yeah, if you really want to find out about the Big 12's brand power and what, how much staying power the Big 12 brand has, how much do we talk about TCU football? They were in the national
Uh,
championship 4 years ago. How much do we talk about TCU football?
I not much.
Not at all. How much do we talk about Arizona State coming into this season? A team that was, one actually called targeting penalty away from being in the semifinals of the playoffs 2 years
Right.
ago. None, right? And you're a non-playoff season away from Texas Tech kind of fading into the back a little bit. Their money might keep them there a little more than those two other schools that I just mentioned, but that's where there's no staying power in terms of the Big 12, like
Mhm.
in what they have in these brands, because they don't have or have not had the ability to have brands that can create sustained success. Like
Mhm.
Baylor, you talked about Baylor. Baylor had RG3. They had a Heisman Trophy winner in there,
Mhm.
and yet you still kind of ride the roller coaster of where's Baylor football,
Mhm.
and it takes them winning. It takes a school in the Big 12 winning, starting off 8-0 before you really are having serious conversations about them in the college
Mhm.
football landscape. That's what the Big 12 is as a conference.
Yeah. I mean, it's and the and look, Brett Yermark, I like Brett. Brett's a good guy. He made a deal with Monster Energy, to be the official, basically their sponsor of the conference. They're
Mhm.
literally the logo is going to be Monster. The Monster Energy logo is going to be intertwined with the Big 12 logo.
Yeah, and
That deal he did only netted each one of the teams in the conference $1 million.
yeah, and in return, because some of these teams are inking deals. I remember seeing it talking about somebody put something on Twitter or X,
Mm.
and talking about Texas Tech and their football field. Somebody said it was going to look like a NASCAR jacket. Like there's going to be so many daggum logos on that field, you're going to forget where the football is.
The there's a lot of I got some really good friends at the Utah Football Fans podcast, and
Hmm.
I give them credit. I give them a lot of credit for you know they wanted desperately to stay in the Pac-12. That didn't happen. They wanted desperately to end up somewhere in the Big 10 if it was all possible. That didn't work out for them either. So they ended up in the Big 12, and so they're not downplaying it, but they do they do talk about how they were starting to build a brand, and now they've got to go to a conference where building a brand is not going to be as easy.
Yeah, and look, I've said all of this, and it sounds like I'm sitting here shitting on the Big 12. That's
Mhm.
not the intent. What I believe is I'm telling the truth about the Big 12, and that's to say, like, I really enjoy watching Big 12 football. I've enjoyed the way that their brand of football has changed over the last decade
Mhm.
in terms of the type of football that they play on a week in, week out basis. It is one of the most competitive leagues in college football in terms of a
Mhm.
conference on a week in, week out basis because
Right, there's
anybody can beat
balance. Yeah.
anybody. Yes, absolutely. But that doesn't change the outside looking in. That doesn't change the fact that you're not going to get a random dude in Montgomery, Alabama to turn on a Big 12 game, at noon. It's just not
Mhm.
going to happen. He's going to he'd rather turn on South Carolina and Kentucky than to turn on your Big 12 matchup of the week. Like
Right.
that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and look, every time I bring up an ACC school, why would they want to move over? Even if we're talking, even if the money is, if they scored a bigger contract in TV contracts than the ACC, a lot of it is, and people don't understand this now. The ACC, there's a lot of schools in the ACC where people go there because I know this is going to sound stupid. They want an education. It's Those are very good, highly educational schools with
Hmm.
great research university, huge, they get money from research, tremendous amount of money from research, 10 times as much money out of research than they do from athletics. Does that mean they don't care about the athletics? No, it doesn't mean they don't care about it. It just means they're not going there because of it.
Hmm.
And so that's why their stadiums are not as big as the big 10 of the Southeastern Conference. Um, and so, you know, when I mention academics, automatically that's a default for the Big 12 saying to me, well, you're an elitist. I'm like, no, I'm not an elitist at all. I'm just trying to tell you there's a difference between how they look at how the people who the go to the schools in the ACC versus how people look at the schools in the Pac in the Big 12.
Yeah,
That doesn't
and
mean you can't get a good education at Baylor University. Doesn't mean you can't get a good education at Texas Tech, and none of that. It just means there's different mindsets.
yeah, and I look at this and I don't I don't enjoy having to say the things that I said about the Big 12 because I do believe them to be true. I wish they weren't. But this is a situation that has I guess manifested itself a lot because of the direction that college football has went in. Like
Mhm.
there was a time that Big 12 football mattered, and there was a
Yeah,
time that they had those brands. Obviously, you can blame the Southeastern Conference for taking Texas and Oklahoma, but like the way that college football has turned and went is now a situation where you're not you have to have these conversations because this is where the conversations have gone. Like that, this is the direction that things have gone, and the reason that we have these conversations, it is NIL. It is the wild west of this landscape, and it is because when you look back, you can get a great education, and that's what matters. But the matter of the fact is that when the money comes in, it's coming in because of these football stadiums and because of these TV contracts, and that is what matters because money is what matters to these schools and these presidents more than anything else.
yeah, I get it. I'm just saying the difference is there's different philosophies on that. That's all I'm saying or trying to say to people. And that is the philosophy is if you go to Duke University, if you go out and watch the football team and they don't win, you go back to your dorm room and you're not upset.
Hmm.
Okay, you might be more upset if they lost a basketball game, but you're not upset about the football. If you go to Baylor and you go to the football stadium and you come home and they lose, you're pissed off for a week.
Yeah,
So it's just different. It's like SEC, the SEC and how they deal with it. It's they're fantastic schools in the SEC. Okay, but it's the football has been driven because of the high schools because of the way it is. The ACC is an East Coast conference where most of the big media markets are professional sports markets,
hmm,
and that again, it's hard if you're in those markets. Other than FSU, other than Clemson, those types of things, they are more SEC oriented. I mean,
yeah,
I've had the pleasure over the years to go to these stadiums and go to these places all in all the conferences
yeah,
and looking at it, the Big 12 and the SEC are very much the same in that their passion for football is off the charts because that's the culture of the area they're in.
yeah.
And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means it's different.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it. I've been in Chapel Hill for football season. I've been in
Yeah.
Chapel Hill for basketball season. It's just a different vibe all around. It's a
Mhm.
different vibe. I because I've been in Athens for both seasons as well.
Right.
It's a different vibe in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, for football season than it is in Athens. The same
Mhm.
way, like it's a switch. It's a role
Right.
reverse in terms of the energy and really the buy-in and the care from the fans.
Mhm. right. And it's when they added the Big East schools, Syracuse, Boston College, Pittsburgh. I mean, all these. You go to Boston College, and I think we've talked about this before. The biggest college sporting event in Boston is hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Syracuse, has a great a great history in football, but it's a history. It's not it's not been recent. Um,
It does
and
as well.
again, you got Pitt, where again Pitt's had great football teams in the past, uh, but they literally. Uh, I think this. I'm pretty sure that they're the only ones. Matt's buffering out here. I'll be back in a second. You're right, Cal Bear, that they are. There's great education and football in the. Here's Matt coming back to us. Matt, we just had Cal Bear, a buddy of ours who follows us all the time, and we like him. He says, you can, there is great football and great education in the ACC.
Yeah.
I think we're not, yeah, we're not saying that there's not great football. We're just saying that you don't go. I mean, I've been out to Strawberry Canyon out there where you guys are at Cal, and it's a wonderful situation. It really is, and you guys care about education and you care
What the
about
heck?
playing basketball. I'm playing football. I'm sorry.
Just completely
Um,
lost on it.
so anyway, 100%. We appreciate you. We appreciate you for coming in. You always come up with some good some good topics. Um, sounds like we're having some tech issues here with Matthew. With Matt, I'll tell you what, buddy. Um, let's let we're let's let's get ready to wrap things up here on a Tuesday afternoon. You there, Matt? Matt, we'll hang around here for a second, see if Matthew can get back on. Matt, you with us there, bud? So, Matt, Matt. Let's see if Matt comes in. Matt, you there, buddy?
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
I don't have audio on you, Jim, for whatever reason.
No.
Talking about Cal, they do have a great education, and
Hmm.
specifically this year in particular, they should have great football. The guy that's going to be in control in Jaren Kiawe Sakapatele is going to be all world at quarterback for him.
Yeah, which is good. Um, yeah, we like to see as many teams out there that can compete. I mean, you don't want to see the same 4 or 5 teams every year. So, all right. Well, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to end the show here, and we'll get back with you all tomorrow at noon. Okay. So until then, Cal, thank you for dropping by, and everybody else, we will see you tomorrow.